Hi, I decided to make a little bit of a video on assignment number 5 to help people figure out what I mean by this JavaScript variable menu list. It's really interesting from semester to semester how different classes are and the different kinds of questions that come up. The question that a lot of people in this class are asking actually hasn't come up before. So I just thought that that was kind of an interesting deal. But let's go ahead and get to it. The assignment says to create a JavaScript file called menu, okay? And in that file, create a function to display the menu that has a variable called menu list. This variable will contain the HTML code necessary to create a menu list. And then I gave an example. Var menu list equals first menu link, second menu link, last menu link. And then I said the backslash makes it possible to continue a long string on the next line. However, this conversation is not part of this convention is not part of the ECMAS script, or the ECMA script strings, so it might be better just to use concatenation, such as, and I provided the concatenation. So, lots of questions coming up on this. With respect to what in the world do I even mean by creating a variable called menu list? Well, when I show you, you're probably going to go, oh, well, that wasn't so hard, okay? Because this is a tiny step toward ultimately making it possible for you guys to load portions of web pages into an already rendered web page using a process known as Ajax, okay? So, first of all, I have here a web page that I have created, okay? Of course, I didn't, it's bare bones. These links go nowhere. I just use buttons to create my links, and I, of course, put little messages to, the purpose of this web page and what have you. So I'll grab a hold of Dreamweaver here and put the code up here so you can see what I am doing, and we'll even include the code numbers for the fun of it. Alright, so the first order of business is I have to create a JavaScript file called menu. Actually, it's called menu script. Okay, so I have a JavaScript document, and I'll just make a comment that this is going to be called our menu list menulist.js. Alright, creates a menu. That's the goal. So it says to get the HTML into a variable. So how are we going to do that? Well, we'll just flip over here to the HTML document. Alright, and what I am interested in is literally this section. I want the information in between these two nav tags because I am going to use the nav tag locations to determine where to put the inner HTML. Alright, which we'll see how that works in just a second. So I'll copy this, and then I'm going to come on over here to my JavaScript document, and I'm just going to paste it. Okay, now of course we're getting all kinds of awesome errors, so the next step is to go ahead and wrap this thing in quotes, right? So or into a variable name. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to say, well, trying to decide the best way to format this. Var menu list. I'll just go mlist because I don't know what else to call it. Is going to be equal to quote this close quote. You see how that works? Pretty straightforward, really easy, right? So now I can either go var menu list plus equals, or I can use forward slashes to represent the end of a quote, or, well, there's lots of ways in which I can put together this entire menu, but I'll go ahead and type that in and then start the video back up again. Alright, now that's all in there, I want to point out a couple things. You'll notice that I opened up with single quotes when I did this, and the reason that I opened up with the single quotes, interesting how this renderer is rendering my sentences, but at any rate, I opened it up with single quotes because when I copied the HTML in here, type equals button is using double quotes. Okay, so it makes it really easy just to go ahead and put all of the HTML together. Now, another thing that I want to point out is that in this case, when the browser uses this JavaScript function that we're writing to render this menu list, it's going to put it all in one big long line. Okay, so if you don't want to see that, what you can do is you can come over here and just go /new line. All right, this has absolutely no effect on the HTML, but when I look at the source code, we're going to see new lines at the end of each one of these menu items. So hopefully that makes that a little bit easier when it comes to actually looking at stuff. Now you'll also notice that I indented this already, and the reason that I indented this is because I plan on making this a function. Okay, so let's see, the Java file is going to be called menu, which I happen to call it menu list, and we're using a variable called mlist instead of menu list. All right, which is okay. And then the code necessary to create the menu list. So I'm going to create a function. Okay, now that that's wrapped, I'm going to call it render menu. I have my open curly there, I have my closed curly there. I've left myself some room in which to work. I'll come down here, and I think the next order of business will be to get a container, or an object container, if you will, or a pointer to where I want the menu to be. And in order for that to happen, nav has to have an ID, right? So I'm going to just say ID equals quote menu, like that. Actually, I'll just call it menu. Alright, so now we've created an ID on nav. Now we can get a hold of that, come on over here, and get our document by ID, right, or element by ID. Alrighty, so maybe I'll even comment that, right? Get menu location, render, because I want to put the menu in that particular spot, right? And I've already gone over to the HTML and deleted all of the code, the HTML code between nav ID, menu, and closed nav tag. So there's nothing here in this tag anymore. And if I wanted to look at that, I can just move this out of the way, come over here, refresh. Maybe I can refresh that, huh? Did I not save this? Let's do a save. Come over here, refresh, and as you can see, there's nothing there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is bring this back in here so you can see me working. Before my body is done, I'll just put in the script. There it is. I have script source menu list.js, right, wherever it's at. And I happen to have it in the same directory as this here little sample. And then down here I include an additional line which calls the function render menu. Alright, so we'll save those results, move this out of the way, come over here, refresh the file, and as you see, the menu was rendered. So literally, if we take a look, I think in Chrome, if I view the document source, you'll see this is exactly what we have, right? And if I want to look at what actually gets rendered, I have to look at this thing in Firefox. So create myself a new window, grab a hold of this, we'll see if that will work. Hit enter, and yes, that's working. So let me drag this on over so you can see it. So there it is in Firefox. Interesting that Firefox takes a little more room than Chrome does to make this fly. So that's all happening. And then down here, if I open this up, I can actually have a peek at some of these tools, and one of them is view source. We've already looked at the regular source, so let's look at the generated source. All right, and the generated source ended up on a different screen, so let me drag it into view so y'all can see it. And here's the generated source, and what gets sent out to the browser literally is all of this, right? So there are my styles, they're doing their things, and there it is, the nav ID menu equals this. Now let me go ahead and have a little fun and go back to my JavaScript, and I'm going to get rid of these new line characters so you know what I mean when, or what I was talking about when I inserted the new line characters. Alright, so we'll save this, move this out of the way, go in here, refresh, and as you can see, it appears that nothing has really changed. But now if I go down to view rendered source or generated source, so let's just move this over here, let's see what it gives me. Alright, so there you are, nav ID menu, and see what it did, button, assignment button, open button, close button. It put it all in one line, which makes it so that when you're troubleshooting this, it's a little more difficult. Alright, so hopefully that helps solve your question, and I'm sure now you're probably thinking, gosh Dave, yeah, wasn't so hard to solve after all. I was reading more into it than needed to be done. Alright, so as I said, this sets the stage for some future projects. With that, I'll say happy coding.